Hello and welcome to Channel 2S. I'm your host, Second Soundwave, and we're finally taking a look at the high-grade Psycho Zaku 2 high mobility type from Mobile Suit Gundam Thunderbolt. So without further ado, let's dive right in. So I have shot this very video not once, not twice, but 3 different times just because every single time I did it, I just didn't like how it came out. And I was having trouble just finding things to say about the kit. Because the trouble with the Psycho Zaku is that it's very much a case of what you see is pretty much what you get. There's not a lot of functionality, no hidden features, not even very good articulation. If you think this looks cool, then I'd probably recommend picking it up. If you look at this and you just think it looks alright or decent, then I really wouldn't recommend picking it up. There's not a lot of interesting structural or engineering benefits to getting this kit. It's built pretty much like every other Zaku with just a few extra things on the back. Even those back sections aren't really that interesting, it's just right and left halves of things being slapped together. The colors are probably one of the coolest things on this kit, with a nice mix of dark red, orange, silver, gold, and a dark brown that can be passed off as black under some lights, and of course the gray for the joints. These colors all go together really well, although of course the gold is that ugly brownish gold that you see on pretty much every Bandai model kit that will require painting to look good. And since it's used for all 47 of the thrusters, that is a lot of masking and painting. I'd also recommend being very careful when you're posing this kit, as if you grab the kit by a part that has these thrusters, it's actually really easy to knock these loose, and I have lost and then found and then lost again and then refound several of the thrusters on this kit because I knocked them loose while trying to pose the leg or the backpack or the arms. So you just have to be careful when you're posing this. Alternatively, you could also just glue everything down, which is a bit of a pain, and you might want to do that after you paint the thrusters, but it will definitely save you a few headaches in the long run. Sticker on the Psycho Zaku is pretty heavy, but nothing too terrible. All those orange sections you see on the skirting armor, including these, and these, are all stickers. The red on the elbows are stickers. The red section on the middle of the abdomen I'm pointing to right now, not the round section, the flat section behind it, that's a sticker, and there's a matching one on the back of the torso. The silver stripe around the round shoulder pad is a sticker. And the silver stripes I very sloppily applied to the commander fin is a sticker. And then, of course, as with any kit, you get a pink sticker for the mono eye, as well as for the scopes of all the weapons he comes with. But that's just the beginning, because every single one of these round sections on both of these panels here, those are all stickers. They're a very dark brown, which does blend in with the black in some lights, but if you put it in very bright, direct sunlight, it actually looks really cool when you see the colors mixing together. And then there's more of them on the backpack itself, as well as a pair of silver stripes right there, and right there. Then there are little gold and black circles on the inside, back, side, and not on the front, oddly enough. Or maybe I just forgot them. Yep, I'm an idiot, I forgot them. In addition to the typical foil and paper stickers they'd see on pretty much every high grade, you also get a set of clear marking decals similar to those on a real grade. The only one I've put on the kit myself right now is this one here on the shoulder, which has a very nice 96, a Xeon logo, and some text that's too tiny to read. But you get a whole sheet of them with plenty of other options should you want to put them on. Because of the way the kit's put together, seam lines on the Psycho Zaku actually aren't that bad. The way the arm goes together means that the arm pieces meet not down the middle like you normally expect, but instead along the side by this black part, and then there's a cuff that covers up the front here so there's no seam line there. The only seam lines there really are on the arm run down these kind of crinkly parts here, and of course those are going to be an absolute nightmare to seam well due to the rough, complex nature of the joints. Same goes for the legs actually. There really isn't a seam to be seen anywhere on the main body of this kit. Of course, all that kind of falls apart once you get to the weapons and backpack, because you have nice big seam lines running down here. You have seam lines running down the entire length of all 5 of the bazookas. You have seam lines running down the entire length of the thruster tanks. So there will be a lot of seam welding you'll have to do. However, these are all pretty big, smooth areas, so I don't think it should be too much of an issue to fix. As you've probably noticed by now, the Psycho Zaku has an absolutely enormous backpack, so you do get a nice little display stand to put it up on. I don't really like using this though. I find that it's not really wide enough. It should really be like maybe a 1/4 inch wider on each side just to give it a little more stability. And I also find that the backpack tends to weigh down the back of the figure a lot, and I honestly just prefer just resting the back down on the ground, standing it here, and just kind of tripoding it like this. It works pretty fine, and since this kit does not really have very good articulation, you're not really going to be getting into any kind of super dynamic poses anyway. But before I move on into articulation, I think it would be appropriate to strip down the mobile suit a little bit just to make things easier. So the way you take the thruster tanks off is you don't just pull them straight off, you actually twist them to the side, it's this way, and then pull them out. Because there's a little key on the back, and there's a little slot in the side of the hole there, so you just twist and pull. Just like that. And now you have a much more basic, compact backpack that's more reminiscent of the Zaku that's included with the big gun set. So starting with the head, we have a 360-degree rotation that I'm not going to go all the way around with, just because I don't really feel it's necessary to show that, since you're never going to have him looking, straight behind him. He does look down a little bit, up not so much, it's kind of just a little wiggle like this. There is a little, if I can pop his head off here, you get one of those little slidey switches so that you can move the mono eye, but it really doesn't move that far at all. Like, that's all the way to the side. You're just going to get basically that. That's the full range of motion out of it. So it's really not even worth bothering to pop the head off to do, really, since you're not getting that much movement out of it. Torso, completely fused in place by the hoses. You can wiggle it like this, but it's not going to stay. And once you put these on, it's sinking right back down as far as it goes. Shoulders do have a cool little swing out mechanism, and it doesn't use the typical polycaps that you see on high grades. There's actually a built-in swing out thing, kind of like the thing the Build Burning did if you're familiar with that kit. There's a ball joint on top of that. The shoulder pad can swing outward. There's a hinge here so you can get it up to about here. There's a swivel at the bicep. Elbow rotates a little farther than 90. Ball joint wrist, just like everything ever. And on the other side, it's a little different because we do have this piece here. It doesn't move this way as much as it does on the Origin kit, and doesn't really move side to side much either. It is a ball joint, but really all you're getting is swinging this way and swinging this way. And once you do so, you can get pretty much a 90-degree out of the arm, and the rest of the articulation on that arm is exactly the same as the first. Moving down to the waist, you do have to separate the front skirts to get independent movement, and you do also have to be very careful moving them because it's very easy to accidentally scrape these little thrusters loose as you're moving the hip skirt armor forwards. I have done that many, many times, and it is very frustrating to have to crawl on the ground looking for these things, so be careful. You can swing the hips forward to about there. Hip skirt gets out pretty much all the way, so you can get more or less, not quite a full split, but as far as you're really going to need. Knee is pretty crap, honestly. Like, that's barely 90. It does go a little farther if you take out the hose, though I think I showed that off in the build log, so you can go over and check that out. Again, when you're bending the knee, don't hold it by the thrusters. It's very easy to pop them out. They won't necessarily fall out on their own, but if you keep, moving and rubbing against them, they will work their way loose. Then you've got this nice flap here that lifts up. Kind of want to paint it gray under here. Haven't gotten around to doing that yet. Might do it at some point. And then we have the feet, which go here, to here, to here with a little flip-flop joint, to here. And then they rotate a little bit, just like that. So as you can see, there's really not much to work with when it comes to articulation here. No outstanding joints, no even really average joints. Like, everything is just so limited and so hindered that even without the backpack on, you're not getting a lot of poses out of this guy. Like, I'm going to just work at him here for a second, and I'm going to pop him up on the stand to give me some extra freedom so I don't have to worry about constraining this pose to the limits of gravity. And I'm just going to put him in like a little kick here. Oh, I can't rotate the waist, so that's out of the question. Maybe I could rotate his head a little here. Okay. I'm going to bring his arm up, bring it around, bring him like this. Going to have to bring this out of the way somehow, to get his arm up further. See if there's a way to do that. And the only way to do that is to make his shoulder pad be really awkwardly out of the way. But yeah, this is about the most dynamic pose you're going to get out of this guy. And mind you, this is without all the fuel tanks and stuff attached to him. Once you have these things on him, it is much harder to pose him, and you're basically only ever just going to have him standing around, maybe slightly emoting with his arms. So, before I slap these back on the kit, I just wanted to show you them up close and in detail. We have a rack with 1, 2, 3 small bazookas on top, and I did lose one of these little, what is this, like a strap connector maybe, on here? I don't know what this is. One of these. I lost one on one of them. Kind of annoying, but whatever. Basically just decoration, since he can only has 2 hands, it can only hold 2 weapons, so most of these just stay up here. It's kind of like the full armor unicorn. Then we got 4 extra ammo drums, 2 on each side, 4 extra bazooka clips, and they have very nice gold bullets in them. I always like it when ammo clips use a separate color for the bullets. It just adds an extra little bit of realism. And all of these can be taken off. You can just pop this off right here. It's held on by a peg. You can also take the whole rack off of the thruster tank if you just want to have it bare bones. And of course you can put this in his hands, but you know, it's just a basic little bazooka. There's really nothing fancy to show about it or interesting. And then we have the lower tank, which is significantly more bare bones. So all we got up here is 3 Sturmfaust, and you actually get a 4th one, but there's nowhere to put it unfortunately, so you just kind of have to set it off to the side. This is the rifle, which, as you just saw, comes off very easily. It just kind of drops over here, but it's really not that hard to knock it off. Same goes for the heat hawk, just a basic single piece heat hawk. It clips in right here at the handle, but it takes like no force to knock this off. Taking a closer look here at the gun, it is pretty cool. Scope moves. You don't get a sticker for the scope on the gun, which is weird because all the bazookas have scopes, but the gun does not. Scope moves, handle moves. It still does that weird thing that I really don't like about the Zaku machine gun where the stock kind of droops down like this. It always makes it look like his weapon got slightly melted. And you can actually take off the ammo clip and swap it out with any of the other clips that you see on the kit, although that ultimately doesn't matter as they're all the exact same piece. And I did mention earlier in the video that you get 5 bazookas because you do. There are 2 large Johnny Ryden style bazookas included with this kit, and unfortunately there is no real place you can store them. They're pretty cool though, so I guess that's a plus. These are actually the ones that use those ammo clips on the top thruster, as they are quite a bit too high a caliber to go in these smaller guys. But I do really like this big bazooka design. I like how this thing moves in the front, this moves, these move, and it has a scope sticker this time. That's nice. Handle moves to make it easier to get it into a pose. And since he can't really store them on the backpack, you get a pair of trigger finger hands. These are used to hold these. They're also used to hold the small bazookas and also to hold the Zaku machine gun. You will also get a pair of normal holding hands to hold the heat hawk, which it holds not really that well. And then of course there's the Sturmfaust, which he can also hold in this hand. Actually, not too terribly. I mean, they're going to rattle around a little bit, but compared to the heat hawk, they're actually reasonably solid in there. And since there's a little thick part, well, there we go. Since there's a little thick part back here, it actually means that if you're shaking it like this, it's not going to completely come out of his hand, which is nice, and I do appreciate that little gesture. And speaking of gestures, you do also get a pair of open hands for more expressive poses, such as this lovely facepalm we have going right here. Now, if you've seen the OVA, you'll know that the Psycho Zaku has more than a couple ways he can hold his weapons. Of course, he can hold them on his backpack, he can hold them in his hands, but he can also hold them in these sub-arms that come out of the backpack. If you look carefully at these folded up pieces here, you can actually see that it's an arm that's kind of wrapped around a circle with a little claw in the middle. And you do get a pair of opened up sub-arms that you can use. Unfortunately, they're just a single piece of plastic though, so they're all hollow on the inside and they have no mobility of any kind whatsoever. So to switch them out, you just take out this piece right here and replace it with this nice little connector piece you get, and then you attach the sub-arm to this. And now your Zaku 2 has a sub-arm that it can use for all sorts of things. So, there's actually 2 pegs on the sub-arm. You could peg it in like I have it here, or you could peg it in along this peg here, so it's just kind of hanging off his back like so. If you have it normally pegged in here, only movement you're getting is a little bit of rotation this way, and then you can tip it this way. That's it. None of these little interior joints move, which means you cannot replicate a certain scene from the OVA where he holds a Sturmfaust relatively close to his body in this and then fires it off. Not going to go into spoiler territory, but it is a pretty big scene in the show, so I'm kind of bummed you can't replicate that with the kit. In fact, you can't even fit a Sturmfaust into the claw. It's too wide. It doesn't actually go in. The only weapons you can fit in the claw are the rifle. It just clips right in there. The big bazookas and the small bazookas. And right now I'm just going to clip in a big bazooka just to show you how it goes in. There are little ridges inside the claw, and they just clip around the handle, just like that. And you can take the subarm, move it around, and now you have him operating a bazooka completely hands-free. And it is a pretty good thing that he can hold those big bazookas in the subarms nicely like this, because that's about all you can do with them. I mean, sure, you could put them in his hands, but unlike every single other accessory on this kit, there's nowhere to store them. That kinda bums me out. And the final accessories you get are these two little connectors right here. These work in tandem with the subarms you get with this set, and they're basically adapters that allow you to plug them onto the Zaku from the Zaku 2 with Big Guns set, which did not include subarms of its own. So it's kind of a nice little way to amend that previous release, even if the arms are kind of the wrong color to match up with the gray used on the Zaku 2 with Big Gun. So overall, the Psycho Zaku is an alright kit. It is very impressive visually, and it has a nice shelf presence, and it is pretty awesome looking, but at the same time it also doesn't do a whole lot. The articulation's not that great, and there are quite a lot of stickers on it. So in the end, I wouldn't necessarily recommend this as just like a general recommendation of like a good kit, but if you like the Psycho Zaku and you want to pick one up, it's not a bad choice. I mean, it's certainly a lot cheaper than the Master Grade's going to be, and since it doesn't do a whole lot, I can't really imagine the Master Grade being any more posable, especially with that giant stupid thing they're going to add to the back of it that's completely unnecessary. But this guy thankfully doesn't have, otherwise it would be like a 5,000 yen kit. So overall, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new here. I do reviews of Gunpla, news on Gunpla, all that kind of stuff. If you want more Second Soundwave content, go over to the playlist linked in the description below to watch MS Report, which is a weekly-ish pseudo-podcast talk show I do with a couple friends about Gundam and Gunpla, and it is pretty fun to listen to while you're building. So until then, I'm Second Soundwave, and I'll see you next time.